Retiring a legend, the story of a brave K9. After years of loyalty and bravery, K9 Officer Rex was ready to retire, until a single moment changed everything. One last mission, one final act of heroism. You won't believe what happens next. The crisp winter air settled over the police station, the sun casting long shadows on the frost-covered pavement. Inside, the atmosphere was quiet, but not in the usual tense pre-mission way. Today wasn't about chasing criminals or solving cases. Today was about honoring a legend. Officers stood in formation, their expressions a mixture of pride and sorrow. The station's bravest K9 Rex was retiring. Sergeant Jake Miller straightened his uniform, adjusting the polished badge on his chest. He let out a slow breath before glancing down. Rex sat beside him, his ears perked up, his amber eyes sharp and alert, just like always. Even now, on what was supposed to be his final day as an officer, Rex held himself like a soldier. No wagging tail, no playful nudges, just unwavering. Focus, as if he was still waiting for the next command. Jake smiled softly, resting a hand on Rex's head. "Big day, buddy. You ready for some well-earned rest?" Rex huffed, his gaze shifting toward the lined-up officers. He didn't understand the ceremony, the speeches, the medals. He only understood duty. And deep inside, Jake wondered, how do you explain to a warrior that the fight is over? Jake's fingers absently stroked Rex's fur as his mind drifted back to the very beginning. He could still see it clearly, a young, energetic German shepherd pup bounding through the training field, eager to prove himself. Flashback, Rex's first tracking test, his small paws digging into the dirt as he followed a scent trail. His first real mission, tense but fearless, standing beside Jake in a dark alley. His first rescue, pulling a kidnapped child from an abandoned house. Jake could still hear the cheers of the officers the day Rex earned his first badge. He wasn't just another police dog, he was special. Jake chuckled to himself, whispering, "Feels like yesterday, huh, boy?" Rex blinked up at him, tail flicking once, a small acknowledgement. Back in the present, Jake noticed Rex shifting on his paws, restless. Was it just nerves, or was it something more? Jake ran a hand down Rex's back, whispering, "You earned this, buddy, it's time to rest." But Rex wasn't relaxed. His ears twitched. His eyes scanned the room. Across the station, officers shared their stories. How Rex had saved their lives, how he had tracked criminals no one else could find. Captain Harris chuckled, shaking his head. Rex once found a suspect hiding in a dumpster behind a seafood restaurant. The guy thought the smell would throw him off. Officer Daniel grinned. "Rex bit me once, my first week on duty." Laughter rippled through the group, but Jake barely heard them. He was watching Rex. Something didn't feel right. Jake swallowed hard. Retirement was the right thing, wasn't it? But then his mind flashed back to their most dangerous mission, the warehouse raid. Flashback. The suspect had a gun. The officers hadn't seen him, but Rex did. The moment the criminal had shifted in the shadows, Rex lunged, snarling, clamping down before the gun could fire. Jake would have died that night, if not for Rex. Jake exhaled slowly, his grip tightening on the leash. How do you retire a warrior who still has the heart to fight? The chief stepped onto the podium, clearing his throat. The officers stood at attention. The medals were ready. Jake crouched beside Rex. "This is it, buddy." But Rex wasn't paying attention to him anymore. His ears flicked, his nose twitched. He sensed something. Jake frowned. That look, he'd seen it before. The look Rex got when danger was close. Jake turned toward the entrance just as the radio on an officer's belt crackled. "Robbery in progress. Armed suspect, hostages inside, requesting backup immediately." Silence fell over the ceremony. Jake's stomach tightened. A robbery nearby. He looked down at Rex, the tension in his stance, the fire in his eyes. The ceremony was over. Rex knew it. Officers exchanged glances. Some reached for their weapons. Others hesitated. This was supposed to be Rex's moment. "Chief, Collins exhaled sharply. "We have units available. Jake, you and Rex stay here." But Jake didn't respond. Because he saw it. Rex was standing perfectly still, eyes locked on the police vehicles. waiting. This wasn't over. Not yet. Jake met Rex's eyes. This wasn't his decision to make. The chief's voice was firm. "This is a retirement ceremony, Jake. Rex stays here. But how do you hold back a soldier who still hears the call to battle?" Jake saw it, the same determination, the same drive, and he made his decision. Slowly, deliberately, he reached down and unhooked Rex's leash. Rex didn't hesitate. He turned, muscles tensed, and sprinted toward the police cars. Gasps rippled through the officers, but no one stopped him. Jake followed close behind, heart hammering. This was it, their final mission. Rex leapt into the squad car without hesitation. Jake climbed into the driver's seat, gripping the wheel. As the sirens wailed, Jake exhaled sharply. "All right, partner. One last time." The weight of the moment pressed against Jake's chest as he stood beside Rex, running a hand over the dog's fur. The familiar warmth beneath his palm sent him back to a time when Rex was young, unshaken by fear, untouched by the years that had turned his fur silver at the edges. A warehouse, a mission. The thick scent of dust and gasoline hung in the air. "Move in," Captain Harris had ordered, his voice sharp and urgent. Jake's heart pounded as they stormed in, weapons drawn, cutting through the darkness. Shelves loomed around them, casting eerie shadows. The drug bust had been months in the making, and everything led to this moment. Then, a noise. A shift in the air. Rex froze, his ears snapped forward, nostrils flaring. Before Jake could react, the dog let out a guttural growl and launched forward like a bullet. Gunfire erupted. Jake barely had time to register the movement. Rex had tackled the hidden suspect just as the man raised his gun. The shot went wild, cracking into a metal beam inches from Jake's head. "Rex?" The suspect struggled, but Rex's jaws were locked. It took 3 officers to pull him off. The man was arrested. The mission was a success. Back in the present, Jake exhaled, his fingers tightening in Rex's fur. "You've always had my back, buddy." Rex didn't understand words the way humans did, but he felt them. His tail thumped once, slow and steady. Captain Harris watched from a distance, his hands clasped behind his back. He had seen officers come and go, but K9s, they were different. He had seen legends retire before, but this one hurt more than most. Nearby, Officer Daniel, young, eager, stood with admiration in his eyes. "I trained under Jake," he murmured to his partner. "Rex taught me everything. He showed me what real trust looks like." Chief Collins held Rex's retirement medal, rubbing his thumb over the engraving. He opened his mouth to speak, but hesitated. His grip on the medal tightened. The ceremony was meant to honor a hero, but something didn't feel right. Rex shifted restlessly. His ears twitched. His eyes scanned the room. He didn't understand the speeches. The words meant nothing. But the energy in the air, the way his handler stood stiff beside him, the glint of sadness in his eyes, Rex felt it. His purpose had always been to serve, to protect, to stand at Jake's side, no matter what. Jake crouched beside him. "It's time, buddy, you've done enough." His voice was soft, but there was a crack in it. Rex's eyes met his, and for the first time in years, Jake saw doubt in them. The ceremony moved forward. Officers stepped up one by one, sharing their stories of Rex's bravery, his sharp instincts, his fearless actions, the lives he saved. Jake tried to listen. He really did. But his mind drifted. The fire, the chase, the nights spent in the freezing cold, relying on Rex's warmth to stay awake, the way Rex had always been there, always watching his back. And now? Now they were saying it was over? Rex growled softly. Jake stiffened. Rex's ears were up, his muscles tense. Something was wrong. The police radio crackled. "All units, armed robbery in progress, multiple hostages. Suspect is armed and dangerous." The room went still. Officers exchanged glances. A few instinctively reached for their weapons. Jake looked down. Rex was no longer still. His ears had snapped forward, body shifting. That tension, that readiness, Jake had seen it 100 times before. The instincts of a warrior. Chief Collins sighed, gripping the retirement medal. This is his ceremony, he's done. But Jake knew better. He felt the shift in Rex's body, the silent energy rolling off him like a storm ready to break. Rex let out a low, determined bark. Jake's chest tightened. Rex wasn't just reacting, he was choosing. A warrior without. A mission had just found one. Jake hesitated for only a second. Then his hands moved automatically, years of training taking over. He reached down, unclipped Rex's leash. "All right, partner," he murmured. "One last time." Silence. Then Captain Harris nodded. Officer Daniel exhaled in awe. No one stopped him, because deep down, they all knew. Some warriors don't get to retire. Rex didn't wait for further instructions. The moment the leash was off, he moved. A blur of muscle and fur leaping into the police vehicle. His tail was high, ears locked, eyes burning with purpose. Jake swallowed hard. This wasn't just another mission. This was goodbye. The sirens wailed. The city awaited. And Rex ran toward destiny. Red and blue lights slashed through the night as police vehicles screeched to a stop outside the convenience store. Officers moved fast, weapons drawn, barking orders as they took their positions. The tension in the air was thick. Danger crackled around them like a live wire. Jake stood among them, gripping Rex's leash. His pulse pounded. This wasn't his fight anymore. He had been preparing for this moment, preparing to walk away. But Rex didn't understand retirement. The dog let out a low whine, his body taut, muscles trembling with anticipation. His sharp eyes locked onto the store, his every instinct screaming that something was wrong. Jake felt the pull, the silent, unbreakable bond between them. "Stand down, Miller," Chief Collins ordered, stepping beside him. His voice was firm, but his gaze was softer than usual. "He's done." Jake swallowed hard, his grip tightening on the leash. Try telling that to Rex. The dog's paws dug into the pavement, his powerful body coiling like a spring. He wasn't just anxious, he was ready. Every fiber of his being screamed for action. Jake understood, because deep down he felt it too. Inside the store, shadows shifted. Through the glass doors, the figures of the criminals became clearer. Two men, nervous, desperate. One had a gun pressed against a hostage's head. Jake's stomach twisted. "We don't have time," an officer whispered. "If they panic, they'll start shooting." The team spread out, trying to find an opening, but there wasn't one. The suspects had barricaded the entrance. Every second that passed increased the danger. Jake clenched his fists, helpless. He had been in this position before, on the other side of the line, where action meant everything. And then the radio crackled. "We need someone inside," came the urgent voice. "We're out of options." Jake looked down. Rex looked up. The moment stretched between them, a silent understanding. Jake's heart hammered, his throat tightened. He knelt, pressing his forehead gently against Rex's. "One last time, buddy." Then with a deep breath, he unhooked the leash. Rex didn't hesitate. The moment he was free, he was gone, slipping around the side of the store, disappearing into the night like a phantom. Jake moved fast, tracking Rex's silhouette until it melted into the shadows. He knew exactly what the dog was doing, following his instincts, using his senses to track the suspect's every move. Inside, the criminals were too distracted to notice, but Rex noticed everything. His nose twitched. His ears flicked. Every step was measured, every breath controlled. He was a ghost in the dark, moving unseen, unheard. And then he was in. Jake and the officers watched through the glass, barely breathing. Inside, the lead suspect shifted. Nervously, his grip tightening on the gun. "We need a car now," he shouted. Then, movement. Rex was in position, lurking behind a display shelf, body low to the ground. Jake's pulse raced. Then, the suspect turned. His eyes widened in shock. Before he could react, Rex launched forward, a blur of muscle and fur, a snarl that sent shivers down every spine. The gun swung, aiming. A shot rang out. Then, a scream. Rex hit the suspect full force, knocking him to the ground. The gun clattered away. Jake's breath caught. The criminal thrashed, but Rex was relentless, pinning him down, snarling just inches from his face. The second suspect panicked, raising his hands. "I give up." The officers stormed in. In seconds, the scene was under control. Hostages rushed out. Suspects were cuffed. But Jake saw only one thing. Rex. The dog stood over the lead suspect, panting hard, his eyes burning with triumph. For a moment, there was silence. Then applause. Officers clapped, some letting out cheers, others shaking their heads in amazement. A few even wiped at their eyes. Chief Collins sighed, running a hand over his face before finally smiling. "You really couldn't stay retired, could you, boy?" Jake walked forward, kneeling beside Rex. He ran a hand over the dog's fur, feeling the steady rise and fall of his chest. "You did it, partner." His voice was thick with emotion. "One last time." Rex nudged his hand, letting out a soft huff. But even in that moment, Jake knew the truth. For warriors like Rex, there was never just one last time. The police convoy pulled into the station, engines humming in the cool night air. Officers stepped out of their vehicles, adrenaline still pulsing through their veins from the intense rescue operation. But now a different energy filled the air, one of admiration, respect, and bittersweet finality. Chief Collins let out a chuckle as he crossed his arms, shaking his head. "Well, looks like retirement had to wait an extra hour." Laughter rippled through the group, but beneath it was something deeper, an unspoken understanding. Tonight wasn't just about another mission completed. It was about saying goodbye to one of their own. Inside, the retirement ceremony resumed. But this time it wasn't just about honoring years of service. It was about honoring a legend. Rex sat beside Jake, his ears perked, eyes sharp but tired. He didn't fully understand the moment, but he could feel it. The shift, the weight of emotions pressing in. Jake knelt beside him, rubbing a hand through the thick fur behind his ears. "This time for real, partner." Rex let out a soft huff, as if he wasn't entirely convinced. The room fell silent as Chief Collins stepped forward, holding a polished badge in his hands. "Tonight, we honor one of the best officers to ever serve this department." His voice was steady, but his eyes glistened under the fluorescent lights. Jake swallowed hard as he reached for Rex's badge, the small but powerful symbol of duty, of sacrifice, of unwavering loyalty. His fingers hesitated before gently unfastening it from the harness. The cool metal rested in his palm. It was over. Officers lined up along the room's edges, standing tall, their right hands raised in salute. Some whispered quiet thanks. Others simply held back emotions too heavy to voice. Jake turned to Rex, his voice barely above a whisper. "You did good, buddy." Rex gazed up at him, tail flicking once. He didn't need words. He never had. As tradition dictated, every retiring officer walked one final lap around the station. And tonight, it was Rex's turn. Jake gave the command, voice tight with emotion. "Heel." Rex stood, his body still powerful despite the years. He walked beside Jake, head high, every step measured and proud. Officers clapped as he passed, some wiping their eyes, others nodding in quiet respect. Even the toughest men in the room struggled to keep their composure, because Rex wasn't just a dog, he was family. Jake's throat tightened. He had seen this walk before, other officers, other partners, but never had it felt this personal. This wasn't just the end of a career, it was the end of an era. Chief Collins cleared his throat, standing at attention. "To Rex, today we thank you for your service." A silver medal engraved with Rex's name was placed around his neck, the ultimate honor. But Rex didn't care about medals. He didn't care about speeches or applause. His golden brown eyes remained locked on Jake, the only partner he had ever trusted. Jake knelt, one hand resting on Rex's strong shoulder. "You're free now, buddy." Rex's ears twitched. He tilted his head slightly as if he wasn't sure what that meant. For years, Jake had been the one giving commands, the one setting the pace, the one deciding when it was time to work and when it was time to rest. But now, the choice was Rex's, and for the first time in his life he was free. The station doors swung open, and the cool night air greeted them. Jake glanced down at Rex. "Let's go home." The drive was quiet. No blaring sirens, no tense radio chatter, just the hum of the road beneath them, the occasional flicker of streetlights passing by. When they arrived, Jake led Rex inside. The house felt different now, bigger, emptier. He had prepared for this moment, setting up a new bed in the corner of the living room, a cozy space, lined with soft blankets, nothing like the rigid kennel Rex had spent his career sleeping in. But Rex didn't settle there. Instead, he wandered the house, sniffing, exploring, as if adjusting to the idea that this was home now, not the station, not the squad car. Here. Finally, after a long stretch and a deep sigh, Rex curled up near the couch. For the first time in his life, he was just a dog. The days that followed were quiet, peaceful. No early morning calls, no dangerous chases, no tense standoffs. Rex no longer sprang up at the sound of Jake's phone ringing, no longer waited by the door, ready to jump into action. Instead of chasing criminals, he chased birds in the yard. Instead of searching for contraband, he searched for the best spot to nap in the sun. Yet, some habits were harder to break. Jake caught him more than once, watching the windows with sharp eyes, ears twitching at every unfamiliar sound. Even in retirement, Rex was still a protector. Some things never changed. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jake grabbed Rex's leash. But then he hesitated. He looked at Rex. And then he let the leash fall to the ground. For years they had walked together side by side, tethered by duty. Tonight, they would walk free. Jake stepped outside, Rex trotting beside him, no leash between them, no commands, no restrictions, just freedom. They walked down the quiet streets, the world calm around them. For the first time in years there was no rush, no danger lurking around the corner. Jake looked at Rex, who walked proudly beside him, ears relaxed, tail swaying lazily. This was what retirement was supposed to feel like, and for the first time, Jake truly believed it. As they reached the end of their walk, Jake stopped, kneeling beside Rex. The old dog gazed at him, his eyes reflecting years of loyalty, courage, and unbreakable friendship. Jake smiled. "You did your part, partner." Rex let out a soft sigh, resting his head against Jake's knee. The screen fades to black. A simple tribute appears. Some heroes wear badges, some heroes wag their tails,